Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. This is episode 15 of the video series where we're taking a look at all the different plugins put out by Topaz Labs. In this episode, we're going to take a look at Simplify. Now, those of you that really like to create a painterly look with your images, I believe you're really going to enjoy using Simplify. It's very powerful yet very easy to use. Now, before we begin, just let me say real quick that in the description below this video are going to be a link and a discount code. Use the link to go over to Topaz Labs and use the discount code and you'll save 15% off anything you purchase. All right, we're going to process this image. And we're in Lightroom, as you can see, and we're going to use Simplify as a plugin in Lightroom. And to process this image, we're just going to right-click on the image. We're going to go down to Edit In, and then we're going to go down to Fusion Express 2. Now, it is my understanding that Topaz Labs is in the process of converting or creating all their plugins to be standalone software, where they'll still work as a plugin, but they'll also work all by themselves. You don't need Lightroom or Photoshop or Irfanview or Aperture or anything else to run them. As of the making of this video, Simplify is still a straight plugin. And to use it as a plugin in Lightroom, I have to go to Fusion Express 2, which is a free app available from Topaz Labs, which is kind of a holder for all their plugins. So we'll click on that, and this box comes up. And I recommend strongly that you either edit a copy or edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments for any image you use in any plugin. It doesn't matter. That way, if a week from now you decide you don't like what you did in that plugin, you still have the original image to fall back on. Now in this case, I already made a copy of this image to save a little time, so I'm going to click Edit Original and click on Edit. Now, Fusion Express 2 will now bring up this dialog box, which is prompting us to pick the plugin we want to use. And we want to use Simplify 4. We're going to click Run. Now, if I didn't already create this duplicate image, Lightroom would first create the duplicated image and then it would send it over to Simplify. So that saved a little time. Of course, I just wasted the time talking about it. But the first time you run Simplify, this Getting Started with Topaz Simplify box will pop up. You could just page through it and read some of the features about the program. Click Skip when you're done. Click this little checkbox right there and it will never pop up again. Now, the workspace for Simplify is the same as it is for all Topaz software. On the top left, you have collections, and in the collections are presets. Below that are the presets that are in the collection that you happen to have active. In this case, I have the painting collection active, and below it are all the presets that are in the painting collection. Along the top, we have different views. Right now, we're looking at the original image. If I click right there, we'd see the processed image. Of course, I haven't done any processing yet. If I click right here, we'd have the original on the left, processed on the right. We'd click there, and we're back to a processed image. These little like arrows on either side will close down panels to give you a little more room if that's what you like. To the right, we have different magnifications. We could zoom way in, zoom out to 50%, or just fit the image to the screen. This little light bulb changes the shading around the image. You just keep clicking on it. You'll get different shades of gray and white and black. So just, keep clicking on it till you get a shade you like. Now, to the right, at the top, we have a navigator window and a loop view. So you could click there and you could, loop view, of course, you'd zoom in a little more, navigator window. So if you're zoomed in like that, you could then move this little box around and look at a very specific part of the image if you want to. We'll just stay in fit mode. To the far right is a histogram if you want to look at the histogram of the image. I prefer to just keep mine in navigate mode. I don't really use that too much to tell you the truth. Now, below that are the actual adjustments. There's 3 different tabs: global, local, and finishing touches. What I recommend everyone do for any plugin is that you go to a preset and see if you find a preset that gets you close to what you like. That will save you a lot of processing time. Apply the preset, then come over to the right and tweak it and make it yours. Now, in this case, we're going to go over and we're going to choose a preset. And I'm going to pick a pretty heavy-handed preset because that'll help me show you what these adjustments do. A little more readily than if I picked a light preset. So we have these different collections. I'm going to go right to the painting collection, and you'll notice that if I hover over any of the presets that are in the painting collection, I'll get a rendering or a sample of what that preset looks like when it's applied to the image. And I could just go down like that. If you don't want to do that, you could click right here and you'll get all the presets next to each other. So you could see what your image looks like with all the presets applied to it. Now, as I mentioned, this is the Painterly or the painting collection is pretty heavy. The presets are pretty strong. So I'm going to pick this one, Watercolor 2, because to me that's the um, I mean, I don't care for any of them to tell you the truth specifically, but this one I think we could work with a little bit. So we're looking at this now. Preset is applied to the image. Up here at the top again, you could just click there and see the original image. You could click here and see the original on the left. Well, I should go back and put it on process mode. There we go. Original on the left, processed on the right. If you prefer, you could just press in the spacebar, hold it in, and you'll see the original image. Let go of the spacebar and you'll see the processed image. All right, now we're going to adjust. We're going to start at the top. You could jump around if you want, but I think it's more logical to start at the top and work your way down. And we're going to go right into Global Adjustments. And inside of Global Adjustments are 4 tabs: Simplify, Adjust, Edges, and Curve. We're going to start at the top with Simplify. Above that, though, you'll see some buttons: Combine, Base, and Edges. Down here in this Edges tab, you could actually adjust the edges of the image. And what that means is anything where there's a high contrast area between pixels that are next to each other. So if you have like this bright wing next to the background here that is a lot darker, that's an edge. So you could adjust the edge differently than you would adjust the rest of the image. And then with these buttons, you could view just the image that is adjusted without the adjustment being shown that you did to the edges, or you could look at just the adjustment you did to the edges. And as you could see, for this preset, we just have this white palette. That's because no edge adjustments were done. We're going to do those in a minute. But right now, we'll leave it on combined. So we're looking at the combined image of edges and base. Now, we're going to adjust basically the base of the image right now. The first thing right up here at the top is a drop down that shows you a color space, and you have 2 color spaces: YCB, CR, and RGB. That's sRGB actually. Now, in my opinion, it really doesn't matter what you do it on use here, because in this step in your processing, the color space isn't as important. When you're printing your image, that's when color spaces are more important. Now, you will see on some, processing that you do, if you switch the color space, like in the middle of your processing, it will render differently. You'll see different colors. In this case, I'm not really seeing anything. So I'm just going to leave it on YCBCR, and I recommend you do too, and just you'll be able to process it to something you like. If you plan on printing it immediately after this, you might want to stay on RGB. That will get you a little closer to what your printer may render, but every printer is different. Some printers could print to a wider gamut than others. So it's really, a coin toss, to tell you the truth. So I'm just going to leave it on YCBCR. The first slider is called Simplify Size. This is actually how heavy-handed is the entire adjustment. If we move the slider all the way to the left, we have no adjustment whatsoever. We're looking at the original image. If I move it all the way to the right, we have the processing on full bore. So what you do is you could kind of just move this around. I started out with the preset, and I want to just kind of move it somewhere that I like. And I like it right about there. The next one is Feature Boost. Now, what I would recommend you do is you're not going to remember what I tell you probably unless you're taking notes. Just move them around and see what they do. You're not going to hurt anything really. And if you mess up, you could start over, hit Command Z, or if you have a Mac, Control Z. If you have a PC, that Z is in zebra, and you could back out of what you just did. So if I move a slider and I didn't know really where I started, I have a Mac, so I hit Command Z, and it goes back to where it was right before that adjustment. And you could keep doing that. So if I move this one here and that one there, If I hit Command Z twice, it'll bring them both back. So I'm stepping backwards along my adjustments. So experiment with them. As you can notice now with Feature Boost, when I turned it up, it really became a little bit more abstract for this image, a little more abstract for my taste. So we're going to pull that down until it's a little less abstract. Bear with me here. I'd say right about there is fine. Now detail strength, we could turn that up and you could see how it's kind of bringing out a little more detail down here where the lily pad flowers are. If I turn that down, you can see how they're not as boosted or not as bright or prominent. So I like that kind of high. Details boost, similarly, will probably paint, yeah, will bring out more of the edges of the, well, I shouldn't say edges, more of the detail of the lily pads with that. Detail size will kind of diminish it in this case. Now some of these sliders you'll notice, you'll find that will do an effect one way on one image, but then it will seem to do the opposite on another image. So that's why you really have to kind of experiment with them and move them around. Remove small, if I move it way to the right, you can see how it's just bringing out, taking away some of that more minute detail that were in the grasses in this image. And if I move it to the left, it's increasing some of that detail. So I kind of like that. So we'll leave that there. And of course, I'm just doing this very quickly. Remove weak seems to do something very similar. So let's say I'm happy with that. So again, that's really the base. You could go to edges. You could see I didn't do any edge adjustments, just doing that. Now below the Simplify tab is the Adjust tab. And these are adjustments that are very similar to the adjustments you have in Lightroom. You could increase the brightness or decrease the brightness. Now another thing you could do is if you want to put the slider back to its default detent position, just double click on the name of the slider and that puts it right back where its default position was. So you could turn contrast up. Again, you could just experiment with these and then just double click on the name to put them back where they default position is. You can turn saturation up. It's kind of crazy looking, so we'll leave that down. And I'm really not going to do much here. You could experiment, you know, saturation boost, again, is saturation. Dynamics is kind of like clarity in Lightroom, but with a little brightness aspect, at least on this specific image. Structure is probably more like clarity, yeah, a little like clarity on steroids. And structure boost, same thing. So I don't like any of those. I'm just going to leave them right where they were, which really weren't doing much. Now, these little checkboxes, I could turn off the whole tab by clicking that little checkbox. So like here, you can see we're back to the original image. Now we're going to do edges. Now, for the edges, to better show you, I'm going to click on this edge button right here. And the first thing we have is this drop down edge type. We're going to use color line fine, let's say. And just take edge strength, you could turn it up. And you could see we're really kind of painting over the edges, kind of tracing the edges. And then you could go to this drop down, you could see what the different presets are, the different types of things you could do. Color line normal, color line fine, mono edge normal. You can see how that's just going black and white, almost like a charcoal pencil right there. So let's just go to color line fine and turn that down a little bit. You could simplify the edge going to the right like that, so we're mainly more on the strong edges, which is the white edge of the bird more against that grass background. So you can find a happy medium. Again, reduce weak will really simplify it. If I move that to the right, reduce small, well, in this case, not doing too much, but that would simplify it a little more. Flatten the edge, which basically, in this case, the effect it's giving is it's making the edge look thicker. So let's say I'm happy with that. Then we could go back to base, and there's just the base image without the edge adjustments done to it, but all the other adjustments are done to it. And then there's the combined image right there. You can see we have these edges on the bird. Now, once we're there, we could come in here and we could just retouch up the edges, maybe like that, kind of a little strong. All right, so let's, for the sake of argument, say that's done. Next, which is not checked, is the normal curve tool. That's a normal curve tool that you see in Lightroom or Photoshop, Aperture, things like that. And we have some presets here. You could make the image lighter with your curve tool, darker. You could get a negative image if you're working with negatives, which I don't know why you might, but you might want that. Or you could just get a kind of a cool effect. Looks like the bird's flying over a snowy scene. Light contrast, medium contrast. You also could just come in here and adjust the curve yourself. You could put a point on. If I want to put a point right here, just click and there's a point there. If I want to take points off, you just click on them and drag them off the curve like that. And you can pull the points right off the curve like that. And then we have a straight curve again. Click reset also and you'll get that straight curve. So I'm not really going to do much with the tone curve with this image. So I'm done with this global adjustments. The next is local adjustments. This is pretty powerful. Now you could really kind of do specific things to parts of the image. And what we have here are 4 different types of brushes. They call them adjustment types. We have a dodge tool, a burn tool, a brush out, and a smooth tool. Basically, with the dodge tool, the brush will make that part of the image where you're using the brush lighter. The burn tool will make it darker. Brush out, you're going to actually brush out the effect. So wherever the effect is, uh, you take it away. The brush size slider, you'd get a smaller slider. So you could kind of come in here and kind of brush the effect away in certain parts of the image. Just see like that. Hopefully you could see that in the video. I'm brushing the effect away. And you can see right here, it's really a mask and it's taking away the effect in that area. So you can be very specific of what you want to affect. Now that's with the brush out tool. Again, now with the burn tool, if I wanted to make this darker, I would come in here like this. And I'm using a very hard brush. You can see that this hardness slider is way up. If I turn it way down, I now have a very soft brush. And it's not as, the edges aren't as hard as the hard brush. Edge aware. If I turn that all the way up and I want to just make our, our bird a little darker, that will try to stay on the bird and not spill over on around the bird, I should say. So, that, is pretty powerful, even though I'm just kind of messing around with it here. You get a lot of different looks that you could make. You could maybe have a sign less painterly looking so people could read the letters on the sign, let's say, and everything around the sign more painterly looking, something like that. With the eraser tool, you're basically going to be erasing away what you did. And you can see down here in the mask now that I'm basically painting in black on the mask like that. Right here, you could just reset it back to the way it was. So again, so you could adjust specific parts of the image. And the opacity is how heavy-handed is the brush. Do you have a lot of paint on the brush or do you have just a little paint on the brush? And that's what the opacity slider does. So to be really delicate, you'd want to use less opacity and less hardness, so you have a more heavily feathered brush. If you want to be heavy-handed, you'd use more opacity, probably more hardness, and you'd have a less feathered brush. It would be more abrupt transition. Edge aware, again, you could try to hopefully stay within the lines, for lack of a better way to put it. Um, then once you adjust that, you have overall strength here, and this will kind of adjust the overall strength of your adjustment right here. You can see like that. All right. So lots of different things you could do with this local adjustments tab. Oops, let me go back to that. There it goes. Took a little while for my computer to catch up to where I wanted it to be. All right, lastly, we have finishing touches. These are things you typically would do in Lightroom or something like that. We could, put a vignette on it. Um, you could change the size so you can mess around, do some stuff with the vignette. You could tone the image if you want. Um, like the darks areas, we could tone a specific way. These ones that are not quite the darks, but are, just I guess above the dark areas, you could adjust a different way. And you could change any of these by just clicking on them. Oh, yeah, like that. And you could change it to a different color toning that you want to do. So like that, something like that. So you could just go through, like I said, and work on those. I don't do much with quad tones, so I would keep that off. Transparency, the overall, like you just adjusted this, maybe it's a little too strong for you and you want to go back. If you go to the far right, we have the original image, and as we go to the left, we're starting to blend the original image with the painted image or the painterly image. So let me go back up here to this tab in this slider and make us look that heavier look. And then we'll come up with the transparency. And you can see how we can just kind of blend it in a little bit with the original image. And you might prefer that. So, that's pretty much simplified. That's how you would do it. And again, I would strongly suggest that you come in and get a preset first. If you're like me and you just were messing around here, you could just click reset and it will reset everything back to just the original image, no preset applied, and you could come in and do something else. And you could take a look at the sketches, let's say. Um, maybe you'd prefer sketches probably, or my opinion, probably better for a less busy image. Like this image is just so busy. I don't think these sketches are very good, applicable to something like this, or the line and ink. Probably it's just maybe something like that. I don't know. If you're into stuff like that. So again, you could just come through, get a preset, then come over here and adjust it more to your liking. When you're done, just click OK. And it will now really apply everything to that image you sent over here. And again, that's why I recommended that you use a copy, because it's actually going to modify the image and send it back over. And in this case, it will open up in Lightroom when it's done. And while it's doing that, I just want to take advantage of this moment to thank everyone that watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Sincerely from the heart. I really do appreciate it. And there's our image opened up in Lightroom, just using one of those presets on the left. So that is Topaz Labs Simplify. I hope that helps you guys. I hope that, if you're interested in it, give it a try. I'm not, I don't work for Topaz Labs. I'm not on top of what they're offering, but I suspect that they give you a free trial, so you could try it out and see if you like it. That's it. I'd like to thank you again. I'll talk to you guys soon.